What is up, you guys? Glitchiz here, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm going to be bringing you the latest and greatest and new and improved Way of Winter base design. I know I kind of showed off the PvE Glitchiz base in my Ultimate Survival Guide, but after doing a little bit more testing and trial and error, there were some things that were kind of bugging me with the efficiency of the heating system within the scenario. So I made some improvements to make it a little bit better, and I wanted to show off all of the updates to you guys today. Before I get into the details, though, I got to give another huge shout out to Starry Studios for sponsoring this video. They were kind enough to give me early access to a test server in order to get a bunch of this footage out early for you guys. So big thank you again, and thank you for supporting the Glitch Gang community. But without any further ado, let's jump into it. So right out the gate in phase one, as I mentioned before, we are very limited to the options we have to heat our base. And in this particular scenario, with how the temperature system works, your base design is more important than ever. The only thing you get in phase one, really, besides your craftable items to heat your base, is going to be a campfire. So the first thing you're going to want to do is build a campfire in the dead center, and I would recommend just a single triangle foundation hexagon around the outside. It's going to be very, very cramped. Technically, if you wanted to, you could do an additional ring around the outside. You would just have to make sure that you keep all of your basically supply benches, at least the front facing part of them, aligned perfectly with this edge, because the second you step out of the first ring, you're going to start losing your temperature. But ideally, once you get through about 5 or 6 days, 7 days tops for that first phase, and you unlock some more efficient things, you could upgrade and expand the base a little bit more. So let's go ahead and do that now. Delete this, and voila. Here is the updated design. So some big changes, obviously. New rooms that we haven't seen before, which I'll show off a little bit later. But the first big change that I wanted to point out that you guys probably noticed is we don't have the spiral staircase anymore, and the base is a little bit more compact and more rounded. The reason for that is during my testing, I noticed that and you kind of saw it in the Ultimate Survival Guide, that when you put your heating unit in the dead center of the base, with the original design, it was just a tad bit too big, and when you went all the way to the edges, you actually lost your temperature buff. So with this new design, and basically the only difference that it is instead of using all 100% triangle foundations on every major edge, you use a square foundation first, and then put triangles in between. And what doing that does is it makes it more rounded, so you don't have double width side panel walls. It just curves a little bit sharper and makes it more round. And by doing that, when you upgrade to, say, the furnace, for example, the stove, or later on the electric one, once you put in your wood to make this enabled here, you'll notice here in a second that when we turn it on, now, no matter where we are in the base, we got temperature all the way to the edge. Normally, if I turn this off, we're sitting at 0 degrees, but when we turn it on, we get the 5-degree bonus all the way to the door, whereas before, once we got to the edges of the door and things like that, it started falling off. Now we got perfect temperature coverage on all sides of the main core of the base, which is nice. The cool thing is once you get the stove and or the electric heater, they actually penetrate through walls. So when that happens and you start building up the base, and we go to the second floor here, you'll want to ideally put your heating unit in the center on the second floor, because that will not only heat the second floor, but it will also heat the bottom and the third floor. So we can go here. It's already plugged in. So we can go and turn it on. And now we're getting 10 degrees on this floor. Why it drops there, I'm not sure, but we get 10 degrees pretty much all the way there. 10 degrees all the way here. And then we also get 10 degrees all the way on the third floor. But before we do that, let's just show this first floor off. This is obviously going to be same as the Glitchiz original design. This is where all of our crafting benches, cooking, furniture, all of our territory terminal, things like that are going to be, minus the crowded spiral staircase now. Instead, we've opted for a teleporter door, which will lead to a cool area that I'll show off in a bit. and a side stairwell to lead to the next floor. So no having to mantle over railings anymore. We just go straight up to the second floor. The second floor for my design is now going to be the domicile area. This is where you put all your personal decorations that you want to deck out, as well as your bed and things like that. Unfortunately, on the test server, we don't have access to all the cool decorations, but just picture your fish tanks being here, all of your season pass decorations and the Manibus statues and figurines. You can put all them on display in here. So this is going to be your personal little space in the middle where you can rest and get your bearings and everything. So that's the domicile area. We also have a wraparound balcony, same as the first one. This will be outside of the temperature buff. So you got to keep track of that. But for territory purifications and whatnot, it will be beneficial just to have potential high ground. And we also have a new facility that I didn't show off in the Ultimate Survival Guide, and that is zip lines. So in phase 2 and beyond, we obviously will get access to the thermal towers, which will ideally be the first thing that you place down, and then all of you and your hive members will build around it. And when you're in these harsh temperature conditions, you're going to want to be able to jump from base to base to base from all your friends' locations a lot quicker. And that is what I think a lot of people are going to use these zip lines for. So I did a little test example here. I built a little separate building, and you can just put one of these on the balcony and just use it to quickly zip across to another friendly hive member's base. And ideally, that hive member will have another zip line that goes to the next one, and you can just chain them all together and make a nice little loop and have a little mini network of these zip lines to just get to and from each other's bases a lot more quickly. So that is a pretty cool new feature that they added, and having this little balcony makes for the perfect use of it. So I wanted to make sure to add that. But that is the second floor with the balcony and the zip line and your domicile area. Then we have a second stairwell, which leads to the third floor. And much like the original design, this is going to be where your farm could potentially be. We do, however, have a smaller area to build. And in the test server, I quickly built mine with full 1 width height walls. So what you could do potentially is delete these walls and do the half wall technique and do 2 half walls, and then use the center wall to build the ceiling tiles to sort of multi-stack your planter boxes, and then use grow shrooms to harvest them automatically, so you can fit more planter boxes in a smaller area. So that is one thing you could do, as well as having the lights on the roofs, so everything should be properly covered. That is how you would optimize the farm in this smaller area. I've also put the resonator in this floor as well, so that it will be harder for enemies to get to it during territory purifications, and it's just out in the open, so you can grab it a little more quickly and not have to run into a whole separate room like in the old base design to have you and your hive members grab the reward at the end of it. It's just going to be right in the middle, easy to snatch, so that's pretty cool. Then we have this little airport walkway going over to the new back area of the base. If you saw the previous PvE design, we only had 1 floor for this attachment, and that was basically the farm area. In this particular scenario, I'm not worried too much about farming because there's just too many other things going on. So I've utilized this space to create another secondary attachment to the base to add a few different things. And for the top floor, this is going to be, at least for me, a storage room. So we have eventually a bunch of metal shelves here, which are going to have all of these storage crates, and they're all going to be nicely organized and lined up, so you can get quick access, whether you're on the top floor. But then we will also have the teleporter door to instantly teleport you to the bottom floor if you'd want. So that is what that teleport door was for. It was to give instant access to the top floor storage room. So the second you come back from a expedition with a bunch of materials on hand and you're overweight, you don't have to go up a bunch of stairs to get to the storage room. You can just go through that teleporter really quick and just instantly teleport there. So now if we go here, we notice that we have this door in the back. This previously went to the farm area, but now it's going to lead to the new and improved deviation room. So one big thing that I had to update and kind of research a little bit was a more efficient way to plant down deviations in a smaller space, because in the previous design we had the large big outer ring in the center floor on the second floor, which would have been way outside the range of your heaters. You would have had to use multiple heaters to heat that, and it just would have been really annoying. So I wanted to make a new deviation room, and what I found that I have to give a big shout out to was a smaller once human creator that goes by the name of Bright Eyed Lemmings. He recently dropped a video going over a small one building facility that covers every single potential like for every type of deviation all in one room. So I recommend you go show his channel some love. I'm going to link his channel in the description as well as a link to his original video, because when I saw it, it pretty much blew my mind, and I'm like, I gotta figure out a way on how to add this really efficient deviation room to my new base design, especially since we have a lot smaller foundation that we can build with now. But I can quickly show you here how it works. The way this room is set up, and I can't believe it worked out perfectly this way, is with this particular setup, you can fit the exact number of max deviation containers in a perfect grid that all line up dead on. The one thing you'll notice is that in the center of the middle column, we have a little bit of a gap here. That is for a temperature barrier, because when you get into the nitty-gritty of the build and the way you get everything to work is if you go into the area that's closed off, in the dead center, we have two sets of all three red LED lights, one for the front half, one for the back half. That will cover the multiple green colored lights proficiencies that those particular deviations like on both sides. So we have a double set of that. We also have one radio in the middle, and ideally you would have one toy. So that will cover the music and the toys for every single deviation. The range of effect will cover all of them all at once with just one radio and one toy. And then what you do is, with how I mentioned the thermal barrier, basically what you want to do is go through all the deviations you have, and then the ones that like hot temperatures you would put on one half, and the ones that like cold temperatures you would put on the other half. And then in this little basically staging area, this far one side you would put two furnaces, and then on this side you would put two fridges. That way every deviation on the bottom floor that likes cold stuff, the two fridges will cover every single one of them, and then the two furnaces, vice versa, will work the same way for all of the deviations at like hot temperatures. And then the last thing that you would obviously have to cover besides temperature, music, and toys would be the ones that like crops and flowers. And so that actually goes underneath in the dead center. If you go through this center floor, this would be the little compartment that's in the dead center around the middle of the room. And in here, you would have a crops planter box and a flower planter box. And they would just, you have to make sure that you grow them to fully before you put them in here, because it's eventually going to get all walled off. All of this stuff's going to get walled off. So your radio and stuff like that, you want to make sure you turn that on before you put it in here and things like that. But eventually you'd have two planter boxes in here, and the range of those planter boxes, because everything's so compact, will hit every single deviation in that circle as well that likes plants and crops. So you only can use two planter boxes and cover every single one of them. And so with just this one unique little setup, his design was perfect. It can't get any better than that, in my opinion. We have a new deviation room with every single like and dislike taken care of across the board. The last and final thing would be the ones that want electricity. So what I did on the second floor, which, because the second floor is kind of designated to be blocked off for the things you need to make them like, on the outside, we had a little bit of extra room, so I made a little secondary area to store our generators. So on either side, this is where I would store all of your generator units, whether it's the deviation ones if you're in a polluted zone, or solar panels, things like that. That is where I'm storing it, at least for my build, in here. If you want to do something else with it, you can feel free to do so. But I think it just looks cool, and it just acts as a little storage area for your generator units. So that is the new and improved base itself. As we move to the outside, the last few things I can point out is we had to stick to the territory purification design from the previous base. So we still have these star outcroppings that go all the way around the outside for all of our turrets, 360 degrees. So we've got it almost all the way around here, but then we also have some in the back. So our backside is covered as well. If you put this up against water or something like that, you won't have to worry about that one side. Every location is going to be a little bit different, so feel free to test it and move the additional little outcroppings to either side of the base, depending on what works best. But for now, default, I have it on both the front and the back. But then the last thing that I added that's a little bit different as before is because we have the giant Chaos Weaver bosses that we're going to have to take down, they're going to require Gatling cannons and things like that. So we're going to want to be able to summon our bigger vehicles that can put those turrets on them. And I never had garages in the other design because we didn't have enough structure points because the base was much bigger, and B, I just never used the trucks. My other Hive members did. Now it's going to be a little bit more important, so I wanted to make sure to add that as well. So on this side, we have a still snap to the base, but a lowered foundation for our giant Hive truck, which can be easily driven off and used as you see fit on the left side. And then on the right side, we have a matching platform that fits both of our pickup truck and our normal garage. So every single vehicle type that you could potentially want and use during the scenario, we now have a designated spot for as part of the base, all in one unique little setup. So yeah, everything is covered. It's much more efficient for heat. You can heat all 3 floors perfectly with just that one teeny weeny electric heater. I just put it in the dead center on the 2nd floor, and you're going to get a nice cozy temperature across the entire base from top to bottom. So that is the new design, and I think it's working out pretty nicely. It's going to collab really well with your Hive mates because of how the balcony is set up as well. So really cool. I like how it turned out, and if you guys enjoyed it, if you thought it was cool as well and want to use it, feel free to. I'll probably make a build video as well on how to build it a little bit differently than the previous one, so be sure to check that out. But comment down below. I appreciate all of your guys' feedback, and also subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of those future updates. Last but not least, if you want to join a killer community of like-minded gamers, feel free to check the links down in the description and join us on the Discord. We've got over 1,000 members in there now, many of which are playing Once Human. So hopefully you jump in and we see you guys around here soon. But until the next one, hope everyone has a great day, and we'll see you all later.